Welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State wrestling, Penn State wrestling recruiting, just everything Penn State wrestling. My co-host, Joey Klender. Joey, wrestling season is almost here. It's like right there. You could kind of feel it. It's right this Saturday. This Saturday starts the NWCA All-Star Classic at Rec Hall. But before that, I do want to talk about Cael Sanderson's press conference yesterday. You were there. Anything really stand out to you?
No, I mean, we got some good clarification on the lineup, and you know, I think a lot of people were pretty much expecting what he said in terms of 57, in terms of Davis and Nagao. There's a lot of depth in this lineup, so there's going to be questions in terms of who wrestles when throughout the year. It's pretty unlikely that we'll see, the definitive starter start every single match. It's just not the way things have worked in the past. So, um, it's going to be a good opportunity to see a lot of guys who maybe aren't the starters get their crack at a match or two in Rec Hall or wherever it may be. And yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. We were just talking before the pod started about how much depth this lineup has, and it's a good problem to have. So.
Yeah. Kind of looking throughout the lineup, I know some things that they're not, like you said, they're not some solidified starters yet. Are you a little shocked that, like, say, I guess 125 you didn't name a starter technically. I think 197 you didn't name a starter technically. 170 and 174? No, I'm missing one. No, I think those are the only two actually that you didn't name a starter. 125 and 197.
I don't think there's a need to name anybody definitively yet because you have,
Mm-hmm.
a certain number of matches before the red shirt has to be applied or pulled.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's any reason to name a starter. I'm sure most people probably think that it's going to be Lilladal at 25 and Facundo at, or excuse me, not Facundo. We're talking about 97 Sabar.
Yeah.
I think most people probably think that's how it's going to pan out. But I guess we'll see. There's a chance Lilladal, he might look really good, but McHenry might kind of be right there with him. They might kind of see it as not advantageous to throw Lilladal straight into the lineup, his first year. I don't think he'll have any problem transitioning to college wrestling, but there's always a chance that, they kind of look at him and say, well, let's give him a year, let's redshirt him, and let's let him develop a little bit. Um, it's kind of the same thing at 97. I don't think there's too much urgency there just because there are options. One guy might look better than another. It's obviously a little more difficult at 97 with the redshirt situation, but um, I just don't think that they're willing to jump into any definitive moves quite yet, just because there is time and there's time to see how these guys wrestle once the season starts.
I also forgot Facundo and Kasich are still in a battle.
Mhm.
Any insight into that one? I'm assuming Kasich probably.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Kasich fills out into 57. I mean, uh,
Mhm.
I'm sure he's probably eating a little better than Facundo is. Facundo was a little heavier than 57 the last time we
Yeah.
saw him, and there was a lot of speculation that he'd be at 74 this year if Levi didn't go up there. So, you'd probably have to lean Kasich just because of the fact that he's probably not sucking as much weight and he's probably not as restricted calorically as Kasich is. Kasich's probably having he's probably eating the steak and potato diet that Carter Starachi was talking about. But yeah, I would think Facundo's probably the guy at that, or excuse me, I would think Kasich's probably the guy at that weight, but it goes back to the good problem to have with having two guys that really could make some noise at the national tournament in March. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. And I think Facundo's probably got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think a lot of people were really excited to see him wrestle a couple of years ago, and uh, yeah, I, from my perspective, I would hope to see Kasich just based off of what he did last year. I think him and Van Ness having them, kind of consecutively in the lineup is just awesome. Um,
Yeah.
there's just so much depth. It's crazy. So.
I'll say the last thing about Cael's press conference that I shouldn't say it's shocking, but it's news at the end of the day. So Kirk did drop out of the NWCA on Saturday, but it is not injury related; it's family related. So he won't be there on Saturday, but he's good to go. It sounds like he will wrestle against Drexel, but Aaron Nagao is not healthy. He has suffered an off-season injury. Do we expect him to just medically redshirt at this point because Braden Davis is there now?
Well, I'm not sure what they'll do with Nagao. I've heard that wrist injury, if that's what Cael's referring to,
Mm,
was something that happened potentially before he even got to state college. I mean, he had that wrist wrapped up all season last year, and from what I've understood, talking to people, that really did limit a lot of his capability last year. I mean, I think on this podcast, I've talked many times about how he's kind of one-dimensional on his feet. He's got the same attack. He didn't finish super well. It's probably because of the wrist. Davis and him, in terms of the wrestle-offs, it sounds like Davis has got the upper hand. I if I were a betting man, and I am on Sundays when it's NFL season,
there you go.
but I would expect Davis to win that spot and be the guy there. Nagao is a really, really solid guy. I just think that Davis, he's a little younger. His offense is better. He seems to kind of have that second gear when he needs it. Uh, and then on top of it, he's not dealing with any of the weight restrictions that kind of hurt him at nationals last year that we heard about. He went into Big Tens and won it, and it was kind of a shock. And then he gets the one seed at nationals, and he doesn't even All American. And a lot of the speculation on that was it was weight related. So tough to see where Davis is gonna lose that spot at this point.
Gotcha. Moving on to the NWCA All-Star Classic. It's early, so bear with me, people. There are five Penn State wrestlers in this one. Let's kind of just go one by one. There were six, obviously. Like I said before, Kirk did back out, but five in this one. Starting with 149, Shane Van Ness is going to go against Ty Waters from West Virginia, number 2 versus number 3 at 149.
You might want to start one before that.
Oh, yep, I missed that one. I'm so used to looking at the left column and
Yeah.
seeing the favorite or
Well,
the
they
higher
put
ranked seed, I
only
should
they
say.
only put Bo on the right, but I guess it's the seeding thing. So
Yeah,
okay,
so like I said, it's pretty early.
yeah, take a piss.
141, number 2, Jesse Mendez of Ohio State versus Bo Bartlett, number 3 from Penn State. What's your overall thoughts on this one?
So this is probably going to be the finals this year if things
Hmm.
go according to plan. Obviously, Bo got the better of Mendez once, but Mendez beat him when it counted twice, Big Tens and Nationals. And obviously, the Nationals match was super close. It was much closer than the Big Ten match, even though the Big Ten match wasn't a blowout by any means. But, it came down to the last 10 seconds of the Nationals match. Bartlett got in on a leg and just got countered and taken down and lost. And so, these are the interesting matches where these guys are going to hit quite a few times this year. They're going to hit in a duel. They're going to hit Saturday. Then they're going to hit in the duel. Then they're probably going to hit a Big Tens. They're probably going to hit at Nationals. So we're looking at potentially 4 times they wrestle this year. It's always interesting when you know that they're gonna meet a few times because you wonder what the other guy's kind of willing to show. You don't want to tip your hand at the NWCA All-Star Classic, an exhibition match, when just to get a higher ranking or say you won the early match. So I'm interested to see how this one pans out. I'm interested to see if Bo is in mid-season form or if he's kind of how we saw him at the beginning of last year, where he was a little hesitant, a little tentative to pull the trigger, not super aggressive offensively. Still super solid. Just, it took him kind of a while to get to being the Bo Bartlett we know. So I think really from a Penn State fan perspective, you're going to be wanting to see what Bo looks like on Saturday night. You're not necessarily super concerned about a win or a loss, but you just want to see that he's attacking, he's taking shots, he's taking risks. You want to see how he's defending against Mendez. Mendez is obviously super good on his feet. Um, so yeah, I think more or less you're just from a fan perspective, at least from my opinion. I just want to see what Bo looks like on Saturday. I just want him to get out of the match healthy. Same with Mendez. Same with everybody who's wrestling on Saturday. But
Yeah.
I just want to see what Bo looks like because, like I said last year, he was just it took him quite a few weeks to really be trusting within himself of his shots. It was kind of frustrating to watch him up till like January of last year, just because he didn't take shots. And he finally something clicked.
Yeah.
So,
Gut feeling. Does he pull this one off?
I think he will, just because it's early in the year. It's in state college.
Hmm.
I'll take Bo. I'll take Bo on
Okay.
Saturday.
Nice. 149 pounds. We got there somehow. Number two, number two, Shane Van Ness, of Penn State versus Ty Waters of West Virginia, who's ranked number three. A little bit of a different matchup because we don't really see much West Virginia versus Penn State in the wrestling field.
It's a shame we don't, because West Virginia
Yeah.
used to have a really, really good team a few years ago. Zeke Moisey was on the team, and I still remember Nico Megaludis wrestling Shane Young and Rec Hall, who was at West Virginia at the time. And Shane Young, I think, was a Pennsylvania kid, really good kid. But so this is an interesting one because you have a guy who's coming off of a knee injury that's been nagging him since high school, and he's finally had it surgically repaired. So
Hmm.
going to be interesting to see how Shane looks coming out. Obviously, I think if he was having any sort of ailments, he wouldn't be wrestling in this, so that's a good sign. But it's going to be really cool to see Shane come back and see how he's developed and gotten better since the last time we saw him, which was he did wrestle last year for what, maybe a match or two or something, and then they pulled
Yeah.
it. Okay,
Yep.
so yeah, I mean, obviously, I would think that his offense is better, and he's probably better in every facet just because he's in that room every day. So yeah, I just think that it's tough to really say because you haven't seen him wrestle in a year. So, but I mean, he's got a tough match on Saturday, so it's going to be a good benchmark to kind of see where he is in terms of what we could what he could look like in March and what we could be looking at. Obviously, he took third as a freshman. Kasich had some big shoes to fill and did it. You know,
Yeah.
pretty stellar job. So yeah, Van Ness. Really looking forward to having him back and seeing him on Saturday. So
Uh, I know, obviously, like you just said, coming off the injury, but you're thinking he wins this one.
yeah, 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 I would think so. Like I said, I mean, I'm not really sure how balls to the wall a lot of these guys are going to be. Like, I think
Yeah.
obviously they're going to be wrestling to win, but these are these are matchups that are probably going to happen more than once, and they're going to happen with bigger stakes down the road. So I just don't see, I don't see some crazy stuff happening where they're putting it all on the line and tipping their hand and stuff like that. I'm not saying that that's across
Yeah.
the board, but
Mm.
you know,
Yeah,
uh, I guess we'll see.
I get it. 157 pounds, number four, Tyler Kasich versus number five, Peyton Keller. I think Peyton Keller actually finished fifth last year too at 157.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
Um, yeah. What are your kind of overall thoughts here? I know, like you said, Kasich's another guy that's probably not going to show his whole hand or show his whole bag, tip his whole hand. There we go.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because he's going into a new weight class.
Hmm.
So, you want to see if which I don't think will be a problem, but you want to see if he can go 7 minutes at 57. He's probably eating a little better. He's probably a little stronger. He probably has a little more muscle. So is his cardio to the point where he can maintain a 7 minute pace? I'm sure he can. I don't really think that's too much of a problem. I haven't seen too many Penn State guys like gas out. I think the last one I can think of is like Andrew Walton. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see Kasich at this weight because I mean, just off the top of my head, I feel like Kasich is a little lankier than Van Ness. I might be wrong about that, but I feel like Kasich's a little lankier. I think he'll fill out 57 really well. I think having him and Van Ness consecutively is, I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's a really, really, really strong lineup with the two of them right in the middle. Um, so yeah, excited to see how he looks at 57 for sure. It's gonna be a good one.
Uh, I know I keep asking you this, but you're saying he's going to win probably,
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
despite the weight gain.
Yeah, I don't think. I think the biggest what if is the Bartlett match, just because Mendez has beaten him two out of the last three times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Also, the match
'cause-
in Rec Hall was super tight and relatively
mhm,
controversial. And
true.
then the Van Ness one's kind of interesting because you haven't seen him wrestle in a year. So, I think those are two pretty much the biggest toss ups. I know that Carter's got, and we'll get into this, he's got Parker, but I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know. I'm having a hard time seeing where Carter's going to have a tough match this year. Parker's going to be the only one that really does it, I think, but we'll get to that.
yeah. Uh, Next up, 174 pounds, Levi Haynes, obviously a new weight class as well, versus number three, Cade Davos of San Diego State, South Dakota State. Um, New weight class, probably still not an issue because I feel like Levi could have easily put on more weight no matter what. Like I thought, like he was just kind of like thin last year and was able to pack on pounds, or was kind of holding back, I should say, of adding weight.
Well, yeah, I think he didn't really have much room to spare in
Mm,
terms of weight. Um, he was obviously not going to be a 57. I think 57 was just a huge pain for him in terms of keeping the weight off and maintaining. It's a long season and it's hard and it's grueling, and when you have pretty much no wiggle room there. I mean, I can't really blame him for wanting to move up, and obviously it was pretty tough because he didn't go up one weight class, but he went up two. So, uh, you know, this is another thing. I don't think he'll have any problems. He's wrestled freestyle at this weight and done really well. Levi's one of the best wrestlers in the country in terms of pound for pound. I think he will probably be the guy at 74 this year. I think most people would expect that. Even though he's moving up two weight classes, he's gonna have some matches, of course, but you know, Levi's really technically sound and doesn't make too many mistakes, doesn't get into too many compromising positions. He's very sound fundamentally, so um, I think he's gonna be great at 74. I think he'll be more than fine.
yeah, for someone like myself who's relatively new to the sport of wrestling, I find it amazing how these guys are still able to perform at such a high level despite being nearly 20 pounds less, or now I guess 20 pounds more, and still being able to perform at a high level.
Right. And I just had to pull the rankings up just to see. I forgot Keegan O'Toole is up at 74 this year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I think most people are going to be ready to see that come March. I mean, that's going to be something. Uh, Keegan obviously lost in the semis to David Carr last year,
Mm-hmm.
who ended up beating Mitch in the finals. But you know,
Mm-hmm.
it, they're both going up. Levi's going up two weight classes. Keegan's going up one. Then there's Hamidi, there's DeVos, there's Lenny Pinto, who's always kind of a pain at 74 for Nebraska, so that'll be good. And it's a super strong weight class. So
Yeah. Last but not least, 184 pounds, Carter Strachey, number one, going against Parker Kyson of Northern Iowa, number two. Now, this is probably the heavyweight match, and I shouldn't say heavyweight, wrong term. The big match of the
I think, yeah.
All-Star lineup, but how much of like do you? I know you said it before. These guys really aren't going to tip their hand, show their bag. How much do you think these two will, though? Just because it's such a big match, too. I know it doesn't.
Carter,
It's all-star exhibition, blah blah blah. But
yeah. Carter could pretty much tell probably most people in the country what
hmm
he's going to do to them, and they probably still couldn't stop it. That's just
it's
how
fair.
good he is. Parker is a little different because Parker's really, really good, and he's a national
hmm
champ, and he's going to be game for it. I. It's tough to it's tough to see how this would pan out because I don't think that, it's going to be like Carter just rolls through him. I just don't think we're going to see that. But there's the possibility that that does happen. That's the thing because Carter really is that good. You know, I'm having a tough time kind of guessing how this is going to go down just because I thought that Carter would have a really difficult time with Mekhi Lewis at the All-Star last year, and he made Mekhi Lewis look like an absolute bum. And that's no disrespect to Mekhi Lewis because Mekhi Lewis is very good, you
Yeah.
know. But then like Carter was on one leg last year at the Nationals and still beat Mekhi Lewis, who was the one seed. I don't think Mekhi Lewis scored a point on him in that match. I think it was the quarters. Maybe he scored one. I can't remember. I feel like it was 3-0 or 5-0. But I mean, we're talking about a guy on one leg, and he's going up against a guy who was a national champ who had his injuries of his own. But I mean, it was never close, not even once when they wrestled. So that's where my mind is kind of taking me is, okay, Carter's really good. He had a hurt leg. He's wrestled really good kids, and he hasn't had a problem. Is he going to be able to move up a weight class, wrestle the returning national champ? I'm guessing he's healthy. I'm guessing he's 100%. I'm guessing that knee's probably taken care of by this point. So, you know, I'm just hesitant to make a real prediction here because I'm just not sure which way it's going to go. It's either going to be domination or really close. I don't think there's any in between.
It's fair.
Knowing Carter, he could want to make a statement and just kind of punk Parker, and
Hmm.
it's really tough. It's a really really tough guess for me there because I just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think
I get
Carter
it.
will win, but I just don't know how. I don't know if it'll be domination or if it'll be like a three-point match or a 1-point match or whatever.
Hmm.
It's not sure.
Yeah. Gotcha. Out of those other ones that other matches that don't involve Penn State, any of them really stand out to you? Doesn't look like there's anything too crazy on the board.
I will say that I'm really excited to see there's 5 female matches. I'm actually very
Hmm.
excited to see that. Um, obviously it's really cool that the girls are getting it, like they're getting their
Hmm.
official programs through their schools and stuff like that. So super excited for that. I will say I am excited to see Nick Feldman wrestle because he's looked really good earlier this year. He's looked extremely powerful, very fast. I was really hoping to get to see him and Kirk because Kirk's gotten the better of him, and I think they really only had. I think the match at Nationals last year was pretty close, but Kirk's kind of had his number. Um, all the other times. But Feldman's looked really, really solid this year so far early. He's just looked fast, powerful. He's kind of looked like a defensive lineman or something instead of, which is what heavyweights in college wrestling are now. But
Yeah, apparently.
yeah, I'm excited to see him wrestle. I'm excited for that one.
Mm.
I will say I think I'm more excited for Mendez and Bo than Starachi and Kakaisen. I just think that the Mendez and Bartlett matches have always been super exciting. And, you know, I think I'm a little more excited to see that than the Starachi match just because I don't know what the Starachi match. I just really don't have any idea how it's going to go. So,
Yeah, that's totally fair. Looking ahead, actually, that one's at 7 p.m. on Saturday and Rec Hall. I think there's tickets still available. Yeah, $25 tickets as of now. If you're not at Rec Hall, it's on Flow. You could stream the game or stream the match. Um, that's really it for the All-Star Classic. Anything else before we kind of move on?
no, it's my first one, so I'm excited to go to it. I'll be there.
Yeah. And then right after that, Sunday, Drexel comes to town for a 1 p.m. match on BTN Plus. I know, I think if I heard from the Cael press conference correctly, whoever wrestles in the All Star Classic will not be wrestling Drexel,
Yeah, you said
or just a
a
lot of guys won't.
majority. So don't know what that means. It's typical Cael Sanderson cryptic messaging, but yeah, we'll get to see a couple backups, I'm sure, and guys that a lot of the fans want to see and stuff like that. So it'll be good.
Yeah. kind of looking. Oh, well, number one, Drexel's also not that good so far. Um, Lost to North Carolina 0-33. Lost to Navy 9-29. We'll wrestle Northern Colorado on Friday before that too. So yeah, they might just be a struggle bus by the time they get to State College on Sunday.
Yeah, it's not really the most ideal match you want to have after,
Yeah.
couple leading up to that, but
Hmm.
it's
And then
it'll be a cool experience, I guess.
yeah, and then the weekend after is the Army Black Knight Invitational, which should pose a couple decent competitions. I'm looking now. I think it's Binghamton, Army, Brown, Buffalo, Gardner. Maybe not. I take it back. Maybe there's not any good. Rutgers is in there. I don't know if
Okay.
they will who they're gonna send, but
Right, that's
uh,
always the thing with
yeah.
those is invitationals.
I guess their first real test is until December 8th. So I know we're doing a season preview and it's November 12th, but
Is that
still.
Wyoming?
Well, I considered Lehigh, but I could be
Oh,
wrong on that.
Lehigh. Okay. I
Yeah,
couldn't remember if that was Lehigh or Wyoming. Yeah,
yeah, Lehigh
Lehigh
on the
Lehigh should
8th.
be a good match. I mean,
Mhm.
Crookham and Davis should be really good. Crookham, obviously had Nagal's number last year and made it to the semis. He didn't lose until the semis of nationals last year, so that's a good
Yeah,
matchup. And then you have Michael Beard, former Penn State guy, who's doing super well at Lehigh. So there's another one for you. Yeah,
yeah,
Lehigh will be a good
and
match.
that, and then Wyoming's right after that. But
Okay. Yeah.
um, they're both similarly ranked. I think Wyoming's 24 right now per intermat, and then Lehigh's 22. So it's
Okay.
right there.
Gotcha.
That's really it, though. Anything else really stand out, or any other comments or anything before kind of sign off here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, wrestling season is upon us. Penn State wrestling
Hmm.
season, at least, because we like to start later than everybody else. But
Understand.
looking, looking
Uh,
forward to a strong year, and I'm looking forward to nationals in Philly this year.
yeah, that's gonna be really fun. Um, but yeah, that's really it. So for me and Joey, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.